So this is Ryan Mauro from the Clarion Project, and I'm here with my friend, Dr. Sebastian Gorka, who was the special assistant to the president.
Deputy assistant and strategist.
Strategist to President Trump. And so thank you for giving us a few minutes of your time. There was a quick question I was dying to ask you just on the broad level about strategy, because you and I over the years have talked a lot about how if you're involved in an ideological war, then you have to fight an ideological war, something that we haven't really seemed to understand since 2001 and hopefully understand better recently. And one of the recommendations from one of your books was to have a large fund to support moderate Muslims in the Muslim world and then other non-Muslims who are fighting for change in the Muslim world. So I just want to get your take on what it has been the outcome of your recommendation. Where are we today? And why did you make that recommendation in the first place? What was the template?
Well, look, why I did it was two reasons, Ryan. The first is my experience working with anti-jihadist Muslims in the Middle East. In my time in the Defense Department, I taught hundreds of Muslim officers from the Middle East who were part of our coalition against Al-Qaeda. And it was clear to me that to defeat a radical ideological enemy like Al-Qaeda or ISIS, you have to defeat them in the field of ideas. And you do that by supporting those Muslims who want to destroy the extremist narrative of jihadism. The template, as a child of the Cold War, was very easy for me to find. As I describe in my first book, Defeating Jihad, and my new book, Why We Fight, the Cold War, for all its nuclear missiles, for all the tanks, for all the physical expression of the division of the bipolar world, was an ideological conflict. And we won by degrading over time the illegitimate ideological message that was communism. And there was a plan. People forget this. The declassified version of it is the appendix to Defeating Jihad. It's NSC 68, the top secret plan, right at the beginning of the Cold War, of what it would take to defeat an ideological enemy, written by Paul Nietzsche, and then based on George Kennan's long telegram, which was the explication of why communism is an existential threat. That plan told us how to defeat an ideological extremist enemy. By the time of Ronald Reagan, it was turned into an entity. It was called the Active Measures Working Group, which was an incredible organization with a mandate to go after the lies and the propaganda of the Soviet Union, show them for what they are, and then destroy the ideology through delegitimization. Using that template and talking to our Muslim partners, I think that is the plan. And finally, we have an administration that understands it's not just about killing terrorists. There's nothing wrong with killing terrorists, but at the end of the day, if they can always recruit more terrorists, you only win when the ideology is dead.
So besides military action, what are some of the non-military action measures that were taken to ultimately win the Cold War that you think are applicable to today?
So if you look at the actions, especially during the Reagan administration, what we did, especially in the black sphere, so in the covert sphere, was to support dissidents behind the Iron Curtain. When the Solidarity movement in Poland erupted as the first real, apart from the Catholic Church, the first real non-religious challenge to the dictatorship emerged, guess what we did in Washington? The CIA helped them. I mean, whether it was shipping T-shirts that had the word Solidarity on it in Polish, whether it was, maybe most kids have no idea what this is, or maybe it was, smuggling fax machines to the trade unionists in Poland so that, they could actually communicate with one another in an age before the internet. These are the kinds of things at the end of the day chipped away at the monopoly of power that the dictators had in those systems. So in a similar vein, we have to support the most active Muslim anti-jihadi voices in the civil society of the Middle East and elsewhere. And at the same time, and Donald Trump, the president, has done this in truckloads, we have to support those governments, especially King Abdullah of Jordan, President Sisi of Egypt, who are the number one enemy. Yes, the jihadis want to kill Jews and Christians, but the number one enemy above us is those Muslims who wish to destroy the jihadists and who wish to be our friends. So, the relations with Egypt have now been, thank the good Lord, corrected by this president. Jordan has been supported all along. We need to do more of the same, because it's not going to be, white-skinned Catholics that are going to win this war. We can drone people into dust, but at the end of the day, if you kill a high-value target and then 20 guys volunteer to replace him the next day, you do what we've been doing for 17 years, which is what I call exquisite whack-a-mole. It's just a cycle. We have to make it. At the end of the day, all war is about defining victory. The definition of victory in this war is when the ideology of jihad is no longer sexy, it's no longer attractive. When we've accomplished that, we will have won.
And what's amazing is about some of the recommendations that you've made, it makes me ask myself the question, are we thinking too hard about some of this? I mean, the recommendations you make should be easy to do and easy to implement. But I think getting to that stage, we face more of a political problem where when we talk about this issue, and you do so with a lot of nuance, you'll get attacked from some on the left and from the Islamists saying, well, that's all Islamophobia. But then there will also be those that say, oh, well, you're a sellout because you dare to serve with Muslims or help Muslims out in the Muslim world. I mean, I get that flack all the time. So how do you balance that? And how would you recommend that people stuck in that conundrum respond to it? And that'll be our last question.
Live in the real world. I mean, the both of those angles start from 0 points that are either irrational or detached from reality. The first group, the left or the liberals, this is the Obama administration, started by saying terrorism is the fault, is the result of poverty. I mean, this is the root causes argument of the Obama administration, that it's poor people around the world, the disenfranchised, that become terrorists. Has nothing to do with ideology. Ideology is irrelevant. If that were true, half of India would be terrorists. If that were true, the majority of China would be terrorists. The idea, it's a very Marxist. I mean, it's really a Marxist interpretation because it boils everything down to the material. You are poor, therefore you become a suicide bomber. Garbage, right? I mean, that's not how it works. Poverty can be leveraged, but there has to be a lens. There has to be an ideological lens, whether you're a fascist, whether it's Hitler in the 30s, whether you're a Stalin in the USSR, whether you're a jihadi. This was my argument in defeating jihad. It doesn't matter. All of these extremists are linked, whether they're fascists, Marxists, or jihadis. There's always the totalitarian lens through which they leverage grievances. The left says it's the grievances. Garbage, because then every homeless person would be a suicide bomber, and they're not. So number one, the left starts with a completely fallacious analysis. Number two, with the hard right or the alt-right or whoever's criticizing you or me that, we're in bed with the Muslims, I say, dude, are you smoking something that's not tobacco? Are you really declaring war on 1.4 billion people? Seriously. I mean, go to the Middle East. Talk to the families of Muslims who have been killed. Talk to the family of the Jordanian fighter pilot, a Muslim, who was burnt alive in a cage by ISIS, and then tell me who's smoking crack, okay? Because you are. The idea that we're going to win this war without people like the King of Jordan, the idea that, Caucasian, Christians or secular people in DC are going to win this war without the Muslims who are on the front line. Again, it's a denial of reality. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm a proud American now. Americans are defined in a large part by our common sense. Then you have to stick to stuff that's going to work. Neither of these poles have any chance of achieving what we wish to achieve, which is securing America and our friends.
Absolutely. Dr. Gorka, thanks so much for giving us some of your time.
Anytime. Thank you, Ryan.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Be sure to subscribe to the Clarion Project's YouTube channel so you can get future videos. Thank you very much.